the school lockdown that changed everything. The morning of October 17th began like any other at Westfield High. Students shuffled through hallways, complained about upcoming tests, and gathered in small clusters by their lockers. I remember checking my phone, 7:42 a.m., as I walked into Ms. Delaney's AP Literature class. 18 minutes before everything changed, no one at Westfield would ever see the world the same way again. Can anyone tell me why Fitzgerald chose to end The Great Gatsby with that final line? Ms. Delaney was mid-question when the first announcement crackled over the intercom. Attention all staff and students. This is a code red lockdown. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. Principal Whitaker's voice was steady, but we all heard it, that slight tremor of fear. In an instant, Ms. Delaney's expression transformed. The discussion about literary symbolisms evaporated as she rushed to lock the classroom door. "Everyone away from the windows," she whispered urgently. "Get down against the far wall." 27 of us huddled in the corner of room 213, a space designed for learning now converted into what we desperately hoped was a shelter.
The lights went off, phones silenced. Some began to cry quietly, others sat frozen, eyes wide with disbelief. Mia Chen, my lab partner from chemistry, was hyperventilating beside me. I reached for her hand in the darkness, surprised at how steady my own fingers felt when everything inside me was
churning with terror. "What's happening?" someone whispered. No one answered. No one knew. Minutes stretched like hours. The school had gone eerily silent except for the distant wail of approaching sirens. Then came the sounds that would haunt my dreams for months afterward. 3 distinct bangs from somewhere in the building. Were they gunshots? Construction sounds? Doors slamming? In that moment of uncertainty, our minds assumed the worst. A text message illuminated Zach Wilson's face across from me. His brother was in the cafeteria. "They're barricaded in the kitchen," he murmured. Information began trickling through our digital lifelines, fragmented, sometimes contradictory. Someone had seen a man with a gun. No, it was just a student with a baseball bat. The police were in the building. SWAT teams were surrounding the school. For 4 hours and 17 minutes, we remained in that classroom corner, cycling through terror, numbness, and fragile hope. When the all-clear finally came, it wasn't relief I felt, but a strange disconnection, as though I'd left a part of myself behind in that darkened classroom. The official report came out 3 days later. A former student, 19-year-old Derek Mahoney, had entered the school through an unlocked maintenance door. He carried what turned out to be a realistic-looking airsoft pistol. He'd been struggling with severe depression following his mother's death. He had planned to force police to shoot him, what authorities later called suicide by cop. No one had been physically injured. The 3 sounds we'd heard were Derek dropping the weapon when confronted by Officer Ramirez. The school's resource officer had talked him down. We were lucky, the superintendent said at the press conference. This could have ended very differently. But for those of us who lived through those 4 hours and 17 minutes, luck didn't feel like the right word. We hadn't escaped unscathed just because no blood had been shed. The school reopened a week later. Grief counselors occupied the library. Local news vans camped in the parking lot. Parents accompanied their children to the entrance. Reluctant to let go, metal detectors were installed by the following Monday. Some things changed in obvious ways. Attendance dropped by 30% that first week back. The homecoming dance was postponed, then canceled. 3 teachers resigned. Other changes were more subtle. Conversations in the hallway now included casual references to escape routes. Students who had never spoken before now greeted each other with knowing nods, members of the same traumatized tribe. Lockdown struggled with anxiety when returning to her classroom. She began teaching with her desk positioned to always face the door. As for me, I developed what my therapist called hypervigilant. The sound of a car backfiring could send me spiraling into a panic attack. Sleep became elusive, filled with dreams where I was trapped in increasingly smaller rooms. "It's been exactly 6 months," Dr. Patel said during our session. "How do you feel today compared to then?" I considered the question carefully. "Less broken," I finally answered, "still not whole." Healing didn't follow a straight line for any of us. Some recovered faster than others, some transferred to different schools. Some, like Derek Mahoney, received the help they had needed all along. The school implemented new protocols. Every door now required key card access. Teachers received specialized training. A buddy system ensured no student ever felt isolated. Anonymous reporting systems were enhanced. But the most significant changes happened in ways no security consultant could have designed. We began to really see each other, not just as classmates, but as people carrying invisible burdens. Kindness became a currency more valuable than social status. Checking in wasn't just polite, it was essential. On the one-year anniversary, we gathered in the gymnasium. No press was allowed. No outside. Speakers, just us. The community that had been forever altered on an ordinary Tuesday in October, Principal Whitaker stood before us with tears in his eyes. "I want to tell you something I've never shared publicly," he said. "When I made that announcement, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the microphone. I was terrified. It's okay not to be okay. It's okay to be changed by trauma. But it's also possible to grow through it, not just go through it." 3 years later, the seniors who were freshmen during the lockdown graduate tomorrow. The school looks different now. New security. Features blend seamlessly with architecture designed to feel open rather than fortified. Walls, once blank, are covered with student murals emphasizing community, healing, and hope. Derek Mahoney completed an intensive treatment program and now speaks at schools about mental health awareness. Officer Ramirez received a commendation for his actions, but insists the real heroes were the students and teachers. As for me, I still have moments when fear grips unexpectedly, but they're fewer now, less intense. I've learned to breathe through them, to remind myself I'm safe, to recognize that being changed doesn't mean being defined by a single event. Yesterday, Ms. Delaney asked us to write about a moment that transformed us. After staring at a blank page, I finally wrote. Sometimes the things that haunt us also teach us. They show us our fragility, but also our incredible capacity for resilience. The lockdown changed everything. It showed us that safety is never guaranteed, that trauma doesn't discriminate, and that healing is not linear. But it also taught us that we are stronger together than apart, that kindness can flourish in the darkest circumstances. This is not just my story. It belongs to all of us who survived that day and found ways to live fully in its wake. The bell rang, signaling the end of class. As I gathered my things, Ms. Delaney caught my eye and nodded slightly. Outside, the sun illuminated the school grounds. Students laughed and called to each other across the courtyard. Life continuing as it somehow always does. Different, yes, but still moving forward. Thanks for listening. Please leave a comment, smash the like button, and subscribe.